The command deck of the Zohari vessel Eternal Vigil hummed with the nervous energy of impending disaster. Captain Thelxor's crystalline feathers dulled to a sickly gray as he stared at the tactical display. The reactor core of mining station Kepler 442 was in cascade failure, and 217 sentient beings, humans, Zohari, Malaki, and Grundian workers, had less than 8 standard hours before the entire structure became a miniature sun. "Evacuation impossible," reported Lieutenant Vasquez, her mandibles clicking anxiously. "The gravitational shear from the binary stars is tearing the station's docking systems apart. Transport ships can't achieve stable lock." Thelxor's secondary heart sank. In his 300 cycles of service, he'd seen disasters, but this was different. The mathematics were absolute. The physics unforgiving. "Send the evacuation order anyway," he commanded. "Perhaps some will reach the emergency pods before—" "Captain." Vasquez's antennae perked forward. "I'm receiving a transmission. Human frequency." On the view screen appeared 2 figures in oil-stained maintenance jumpsuits. The woman, Orla McCarthy, had copper hair pulled back in a hasty bun, smudges of coolant gel across her freckled cheeks. Beside her stood Riza Okonkwo, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark eyes sharp with focus. "This is Chief Engineer McCarthy of Kepler 442, Orla said, her voice steady despite the alarms wailing behind her. "We've got this." Thelxor's feathers rippled in confusion. "Engineer McCarthy, with respect, our calculations show—" "Yeah, we've seen your calculations," Riza interrupted, pulling up a holographic schematic. "They're not wrong, but they're incomplete." "Incomplete?" Vasquez echoed. Orla grinned, that peculiar baring of teeth that humans somehow meant as reassurance. "You're calculating based on standard emergency protocols. Controlled shutdown, systematic coolant purge, evacuation first. All very sensible. But sensible isn't going to cut it today," Riza finished. "We're going to do something your protocols don't account for." Thelxor felt his translator struggling with the human idiom. "You cannot simply improvise your way out of nuclear physics. Watch us," Orla said. What followed over the next 7 hours and 43 minutes would be studied in xenoanthropology courses for generations. The humans didn't have the right parts, so they made them. Riza ripped the plasma conduits from the station's recreational hydroponics bay and jury-rigged them into the cooling system using magnetic clamps designed for hull repair. It violated 17 safety regulations and made the Zohari engineering observers physically ill with anxiety. "That will never hold the pressure," Vasquez whispered, watching the feed. It held Orla didn't have the correct sealant for the reactor housing, so she used a combination of industrial adhesive, carbon nanofiber tape, and what she cheerfully called good old-fashioned welding. The mixture shouldn't have worked. 3 different materials with incompatible thermal expansion rates. It worked. When the primary coolant pumps failed, they built new ones. Not from parts. There were no parts. They cannibalized the station's water reclamation system, the artificial gravity generators from sections C through F, and somehow, impossibly, 3 protein synthesizers from the galley. How are they even conceptualizing this? Thelxor breathed, watching Riza sprint through a corridor carrying an armload of components that had no business being used together. "Humans," Vasquez said quietly, her tone shifting from anxiety to something approaching awe, "don't seem to recognize the difference between impossible and extremely difficult." With 47 minutes remaining, the reactor temperature was still climbing. Every other species on the station had evacuated to the interior safe rooms, accepting the mathematics of their fate. But in the reactor control room, Orla stood before a control panel she'd rebuilt 3 times, her hands steady on the manual override. "Riza, you in position?" she called into her comm. 5 decks below, Riza stood inside the reactor containment chamber itself, protected by nothing but a radiation suit that was rated for 30 minutes of exposure. He'd been in there for 2 hours. "In position," he confirmed, his voice crackling. "Orla, you know this is insane, right?" "Absolutely," she replied. "On my mark, reverse the polarity on the magnetic bottle." "It's going to fight you. Everything today has fought me, and everything today has lost." Aboard the Eternal Vigil, Thelxor watched as the 2 humans executed a maneuver that no Zohari, no Malaki, no Grundian would have attempted. They weren't just stabilizing the reactor. They were forcing it into a controlled state it was never designed to achieve, using equipment that was never meant to exist. 3, 2, 1. Mark, the reading spiked, then stabilized, then impossibly began to decrease. 15 minutes later, Riza stumbled out of the containment chamber, his suit's radiation badge glowing amber but not yet red. Orla caught him as his knees buckled. "We've got this," he mumbled, delirious with exhaustion and radiation exposure. "Yeah," Orla laughed, tears streaming down her face. "We've got this." The station's evacuation alarm finally fell silent. On the eternal vigil, Thelxor stood slowly, his feathers brightening to brilliant azure, the Zohari color of profound respect. "Lieutenant Vasquez," he said quietly, "note in the log. Today we learned why humans are the only species to have a saying about impossible odds. They say we've got this not because they know they will succeed, but because they refuse to accept that they might not." Vasquez's antennae dipped in acknowledgement. "Shall I send medical teams?" "Send them," Thelxor agreed. "And send engineers. Not to help, I don't think humans need help. Send them to learn." On the view screen, Orla and Riza were already planning repairs, their voices animated, their spirits unbroken. They'd just defied physics, improvised miracles, and saved 217 lives with nothing but determination and duct tape. They'd said they had this, and they did.